How's it going, everybody? Ben from basesetmew here, and welcome back to the channel. This video is another entry in my collecting on a budget series. Although for this one I thought I'd do something special. Usually I do a low budget, but for this one I set the budget to $100/euros. I thought it's right around Christmas and maybe some of you guys are looking for a present for your friend, your significant other, or maybe even a present for yourself, which is why I thought $100 is a great price point. We have a ton of cards to cover, so without further ado, let's jump straight into it. You're already seeing the first card right here, the Charizard EX, this one being the Japanese version though. I'm not just saying that because the Japanese version has better texture than the English one. No, this one in particular, you're gonna see once we head over to ebay.com, is actually cheaper than the English version. So on Card Market right here, we have it sitting at below 100, actually one offer. He has two versions, so maybe you get lucky and can buy a version from this seller. And heading over to ebay.com, you can see this card is also below $100 at $96 for this one. Now, back to the topic at hand, ebay.com. Why did I feature this one? It's not just for the texture. If we just check the English version of this card, and you see right here, cheapest option that I could find was $140, which is way above our budget for this video, which is why I suggest you buy the Japanese version. Even if you want to spend more for the English version, I seriously wouldn't advise it, since the Japanese texture is just so much better. I know I keep going on about it, but it is the truth. I will actually link a video of my mail day up here where I actually compared the texture between special art rares and special illustration rares. Go check that one out. You'll be very impressed and surprised by the results. Now, next up we have this Rayquaza V from Evolving Skies. Actually one of my favorite alternate arts from not just Evolving Skies, but from the whole Sword and Shield era. Although this one in particular I can only really recommend in an excellent quality, since near mint copies and such are a little bit over budget. Even an excellent copy is a little bit over budget for this card, but I think the card is still very worth it in my opinion. It's a great artwork, and the English version for once is cheaper than the Japanese version. Over on ebay.com, I had to look for a little bit to find a copy below $100, but if you search for like just 5 minutes or so, you should be able to find one in a decent enough condition. Just as a forward, should have done that at the beginning of the video. All the cards featured in this one, actually most of the cards featured in this video, are actually meant to be binder copies. None of the cards that I feature right here are meant to be graded. If you really want a card that you can grade and potentially get a PSA 10, CGC Pristine, and so on and so forth, you will have to spend an extra dime for a minty copy, but for binder copies, these are really good. Right, next up here is another alternate art. I do have a lot of alternate arts in this episode. Right here we have the Japanese Tyranitar V from Single Strike Master. Pretty old set at this point. This one is available for well below €100 on this one. And this is also pretty cool. Now, what do I feature this one instead of the English version of that card? Mainly because the English version, just like the Rayquaza, I could only really recommend an excellent copy for us Europeans. But as you can see right here, near mint copies are above €100, which is why I didn't recommend the English version. Over here on eBay, I have found one copy at $99, so just $1 below that $100 mark. Very nice. Now, next up right here, I do have another English alternate art. I have the Aerodactyl V from Lost Origin. This one sitting one offer at below 100. Most of them are above 100, so for this one, I would also recommend maybe try to look for an excellent copy of this one, although cards are pretty difficult to find in excellent condition. Most notably though, the Japanese version of this one is way cheaper than the English one. If you just check the price right here for the Japanese version, you can see there are offers for €55, or right around that spot. So if you do want to save some money, I would recommend buying the Japanese version, but once again, for the sake of this video, I am featuring the English version. Right over here on TCG Player, you do actually have to search for a little bit, since most of these copies are either Chinese or Japanese, or like this one, super off-centered. There's just one for just below $100. I suppose with shipping, it would put it just above 100, but that's just 50 cents above 100. I think that counts. Alright, next up, I'm actually a little bit cheating on this one, since this isn't just supposed to be one card. These cards are actually meant to be bought as a set, other than the Giratina. The Giratina can be bought as a standalone for around 75 euros. And as you can see here on eBay, the card is actually way cheaper for you guys from the US and Canada. So there you are, $62 for this one. But as I said, these cards are meant to be bought as a set, which is why the next card is, of course, the Palkia V-Star. This one well below 100. This one just sitting at around 30 euros. Right over here on eBay, it's $33. Next up is, of course, the Dialga V-Star, also sitting at around 33 to 35 euros. Right over here on eBay, $40 for this one. Alright, and last but not least, my favorite of these four cards, actually, the Arceus V-Star. This one being available for 45 to 48 euros. And over here on eBay, it's sitting at $42. So this is what I meant. You could actually buy the Arceus, the Dialga, and the Palkia. You would be a little bit over 100, but you have the full set, and then maybe later on you could add the Giratina to your collection. And then once again for these cards, although I'm not quite sure, but I'm fairly certain that the English versions of these ones are way more expensive, which is actually such a shame, since the Japanese ones look so much better. But enough of me going on about texture and which cards looks better. Just buy the cards you wanna buy, eh? If it is around the same price. Now, next up right here, I have another Charizard card. The Charizard EX from Ruler of the Black Flame, once again the Japanese version instead of the English one. To be fair though, this one is actually more expensive than the English version. This one's sitting at around 90 euros, so a little bit below our 100 euro budget. Over here on eBay.com, I have found a copy at $83, and this card is pretty cool. I actually do prefer the version from Shiny Treasure EX, but this card is still very well made. It is illustrated by Akira Egawa, and you know how much I like her illustrations. If you have a friend, significant other, your cat, who is really into Charizard, and you get them this as a Christmas gift, they'll be through the roof. Even your cat, believe me. Alright, next up is the Celebi V. This is actually a Sword and Shield promo, and usually these Sword and Shield promos, for the most part, are pretty dang expensive. Not this one though, this one is still very affordable. This one is well below 100, but I'm not talking about a raw copy of this one. No, I'm actually talking about a PSA 10, because the PSA 10 is sitting at 90 euros, which is insane in my opinion. That is really cool. Below 100 for a PSA 10 Japanese Sword and Shield promo. That's very nice. Over here on eBay.com, I have found this offer right here at around $85 on this one. Alright, moving it on, the Mew EX from Pokemon 151. Now I do realize that this card in English is significantly cheaper than the Japanese version, but in my opinion, I'm gonna say it again, the Japanese version just looks so much better. I know you're probably sick of hearing it by now, but if you actually see the Japanese version in person, the sun effect is so much more pronounced than it is on the English version. And this is a great card in my opinion, really cool. Way below 100 as well, sitting at around 70 euros on this one. Over here on eBay.com, even cheaper at around $63. Great stuff. Alright, next up, you can probably already tell by the card featured right here, I have a bunch of evolutions, the first one being the Flareon V, and I do realize at 35 euros, it is well below our 100 euro budget. That's because you are meant to buy these as a set, similar to the Golden God cards from V-Star Universe. God cards. Sounds like Yu-Gi-Oh! Up in here. We have the, as I said, the Flareon at around 35 euros, we have the Vaporeon at around 40 euros, and then we have the Jolteon at around 26, I guess 30 euros. So all in all, you would be just below 100 euros on this one. And great stuff, and I think all three of these cards are great to add to your collection. These ones are not featured in Japanese, because the Japanese versions, while they are pretty cool, I think they are also hovering around 60 to 70 euros. Just for the sake of this one, I'd actually recommend buying the English versions of this one. Alright, over on TCG Player right here, these cards are, I think, a little bit more expensive. We have the Flareon. I think the cheapest offer right here might be $32. You have to look out to not accidentally buy a Chinese version. And we have the Vaporeon sitting at around $36 right here. And of course, last but not least, the Jolteon for the set of these three, hovering at around $32 it seems. Right, next up though, as I said, more evolutions. Now for Card Market, I actually featured the Japanese versions, but for these ones, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. The only card where it really matters is the Umbreon V, but more on that later. And either version you buy of these cards, like English or Japanese, I think you're still completely fine. You might want to consider the English versions, because if you're actually trying to build an evolution collection, you might want to get the VMAX cards at some point too. And the Umbreon VMAX in Japanese is really expensive. It's even more expensive than the English version, so just keep that in mind. For this Leafeon right here, the Japanese version, we have 70 euros. I can also just check the English version real quick, which should be around the same price. Actually, ends up being a little bit cheaper right here, but I guess a similar price, 3 euros cheaper, but there you are. And right here is a Japanese version of the Leafeon V on ebay.com. 75 euros, but I also looked up the English version of this card. Seems to be hovering around the same price, which is why it kind of doesn't matter in which language you buy this one. For this one, for once, I would actually recommend English versions, as I've said. You know, the VMAXs, even though the Umbreon is expensive, are way cheaper to get than the Japanese ones. Right, next up is the Glaceon V. This one in Japanese being available at around 90 euros, it seems like. Let's just real quick look at the English version of this one right here, and hovering at around 85 euros on this one. And then right here, the Japanese version on ebay.com is sitting at almost $90, and the English version right here on TCG Player is a little bit cheaper than the Japanese version, sitting at around $80 it seems. So once again, either language you choose, these illustrations are great. I love actually all of these evolution illustrations. The Espeon right here is a weird one, because while the Japanese version is still sitting well below 100 euros, I think the English version is hovering just above 100, at least on Card Market. We'll see if that's the same on the English market. Yeah, see, it's hovering right around 100. You'd have to be very lucky to find one below 100. And over here on ebay.com, I have found a Japanese copy for 75 euros. And over on TCG Player, this one in English, once again, a little bit more expensive, but the option is there. Either you buy the Japanese or the English one. I do know that a lot of you guys actually love being able to read your cards, which is why I'm offering you both languages, if you will. Right here, the Sylveon in Japanese on Card Market seems to be hovering at just below 100 on this one, which is kind of surprising. But there we are, English version of this card, of course, hovering at around 90 it seems like over on ebay.com. Japanese version for this one significantly cheaper at $75, and over here the English version, just, you know, make sure you don't accidentally buy a Chinese or Japanese version, hovering at around $75, which is the exact same price. So there you go, you do have the option, Japanese, English, whichever you prefer, and this is what I love featuring these cards in particular. The Umbreon though, this one, as you can see, well above 100. Well above 100, at least on Card Market, which is why I would not recommend buying the English version of this one, just for the sake of this video. If we just look at the price of the Japanese version, that was the wrong version, this one right here, and the Japanese, I have to scroll very far down, and I think the cheapest version, if I didn't miss one, is a PSA 7 at 140 euros. So this one in particular I would not recommend, but I thought I would point it out, otherwise someone might say I forgot the Umbreon. Once again, right here, ebay.com, it's a similar story, well above our 100 euro budget, which is why I would not recommend buying this one. Same story, or even crazier story for the English version, of course. Being pushed to well above $160 on this one. And that concludes our evolutions. I do have 2 more full art trainers. You know, I do have to finish off with some of my favorite full art trainers, and the cards that I found actually fit the 100 budget perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. The first one right here is the Cynthia, sitting at well below 100, sitting at 66 euros, which is insane. Love this card. This is actually my favorite Cynthia full art. This is such a cool illustration. You have the Garchomp in the background. You have the shiny Lucario just chilling below Cynthia. And then Cynthia looking very smug. You're just gonna get crushed. Like, your team is gonna get absolutely crushed by Garchomp right there in the background. That's what that smug face looks like. On TCG Player, this card is a little bit more expensive. Seems to be sitting at around $80, but as you can see, the price actually is going down. Let's see, 6 months. Yeah, see, the price is going down now. It was a little bit more expensive a few months ago, but there you are. And last but not least, we have the N from Fates Collide. This one also sitting at around 85 euros and over on TCG Player. This one is not available. Okay, so there has been a slight mistake. Last time I checked, this one was actually still readily available in near mint for below 100, but it turns out that some of the cards have been bought, so all I can do now is offer you a light plate version of this one for a little bit under 50, or I guess just around $50. You might be able to find one on eBay in a near mint for around 100, but the card is there, still in light plate, still a great copy. The artwork is really cool, and there we are. Welp, but that concludes my cards under 100 or around 100 video. A little bit different, way higher budget than I would usually do for these kinds of videos, but I think, like, towards the end of the year, this felt correct for me, this amount of budget. This was really fun to make. Usually I kind of have, I don't want to say I have to struggle to find cards that are below a certain price point, but if you set the price point for around $100, you get access to so many cool looking cards. I'll definitely consider doing more of these videos for a certain budget, not just like cheap cards in general, maybe cards around a certain budget. I have done so in the past. I have done a video for cards below $50. Now I've done one for around $100. Maybe I'll do one for 50 again at some point, but all in all, this concludes this video. If you did enjoy this video, then a like would be greatly appreciated. If you didn't, then by all means give it a dislike. Tell me in the comments below what you didn't like so I can try to fix that for future videos. Other than that, right here is the video that YouTube thinks is best suited for you. Right here is the subscribe button. Click this one first and click this video. Check out any of the other videos in the description below. And I hope we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace, take care.